Here it says, this is a statement from today, from the executive committee. In every CBA negotiation, the goal of the league...
The Women's National Basketball Players Association spent months telling the public that the players were united, focused, and ready to hold the line. The message was simple. The union was strong, disciplined, and completely aligned heading into negotiations. Then everything unraveled. Two of their own vice presidents quietly wrote a letter that said the exact opposite of what leadership had been claiming. That letter didn't stay private for long. It was leaked straight to ESPN. In a matter of hours, the union that was supposed to look unbreakable suddenly looked divided in front of the entire sports world, and the timing could not have been worse. Now the big question is this: should the WNBPA leadership step down after such a public fallout, or can they still pull things together and salvage the CBA negotiations before the March 10th deadline? Before we dive deeper into what this means for the league and the players, let's first break down exactly what happened, because the basic summary alone is already embarrassing enough.
Members who seem to have not been able to get any information for a full year, all the way up until January, from the president, Nneka Ogwumike. When you say the league and the team's goal is to divide the players, I don't think they had to do anything to divide the players. I think you guys, as leaders, have done a poor job, which is why a bunch of the players have come out and said you guys are being selfish and greedy.
For months, the Women's National Basketball Players Association worked hard to present a perfectly unified front to the public. Every press conference, every social media post, and every interview with union leadership repeated the same message. The players were united, focused, and impossible to divide. At the center of that message were Nneka Ogwumike, the union's president, and Terry Carmichael Jackson, the executive director. Together, they projected the image of an organization that had everything under control and knew exactly what it was doing at the negotiating table. But behind the scenes, the story was very different. Two of the union's own vice presidents, Kelsey Plum and Breanna Stewart, both members of the executive committee responsible for steering the entire operation, decided they had had enough. They wrote a detailed 3-page letter directly to Terry Carmichael Jackson, expressing deep frustration that they were not being kept informed about what was actually happening inside the negotiations. Think about that for a moment. Two of the highest-ranking leaders inside the union were essentially admitting that they were being left in the dark about the very negotiations they were supposed to help lead. And once that letter surfaced publicly, the carefully crafted image of unity inside the WNBPA began to crack almost instantly.
Percent of net revenue, which is less than 15% of gross revenue, in an 8-year deal, or asked the union to keep negotiating. 84% said no, I would not accept 15% and want the union to keep negotiating. Okay, that this is what they're saying they gathered from their survey. I don't know if this is, I don't know, like, I think Nneka Ogwumike and them are full of it, to be honest with you. Like, how can we believe anything she say? Like, we've had Breanna Stewart and all of these people talking about they're on the same accord and all of this stuff, and then they write a letter talking about saying the exact opposite of everything they claim to be going on and to be happening. So I take this with a grain of salt. I don't believe anything the WNBPA is putting out right now. I don't know if Nneka Ogwumike could have drew this letter up in her kitchen and had it posted up on the WNBPA social handles. We don't know. We don't know.
For months, the WNBPA presented a perfectly unified front to the public. Every press conference, every social media post, and every interview from union leadership repeated the same message. The players were united, the players were focused, and the players would not be divided. At the center of that message were Nneka Ogwumike as president and Terry Carmichael Jackson as executive director. Together, they projected the image of an organization that had its house in order and knew exactly what it was doing at the negotiating table. But behind the scenes, things were not nearly as smooth as they appeared. Kelsey Plum and Breanna Stewart, two of the union's own vice presidents and members of the executive committee responsible for steering the entire operation, decided to speak up. They wrote a 3-page letter directly to Terry Carmichael Jackson, expressing frustration that they were not being kept informed about what was actually happening in the negotiations. Think about that for a second. Two of the highest-ranking leaders inside the union were saying they were being left in the dark about the very negotiations they were supposed to help lead. Once that letter surfaced, the carefully built image of unity inside the union suddenly started to crack.
Has emerged victorious in its battle against the Players Association. While you have not read that there has been a settlement, while you have not seen an agreement and the start of the WNBA season, I am guaranteeing you that Adam Silver and the other WNBA owners will emerge victorious from this negotiation, because the WNBPA, the Players Association, is an outright mess. Just yesterday, Kelsey Plum and Breanna Stewart wrote a letter to the Players Union Executive Director, a woman named Terry Jackson, who's been there for years and has done, when in their mind, a very good job, wrote a letter basically saying, you don't talk to us. Quoting Barbara Streisand and Neil Diamond, you don't bring us flowers anymore. It used to be so natural for us to talk, but used to be's don't count anymore.
Then the situation got even worse. The letter didn't leak to some random blog or a small sports outlet. It was leaked directly to ESPN, the biggest sports media platform in the country. That one detail changes everything. Because once ESPN has it, the story instantly becomes public knowledge. Now everyone can see it, the league, the team owners, the fans, every player in the union, and every agent trying to advise their clients on what to do next. And what they are reading is not a rumor or speculation. It's a detailed, written account of a fracture inside the Women's National Basketball Players Association, coming directly from the union's own leadership. In other words, the image of unity that the WBPA spent months building just collapsed in front of the entire sports world. This is exactly what a self-inflicted wound looks like in real time.
Ends up and says there's a deadline on March 10th. You better get a deal done or we're not going to be able to get the season underway and we're going to have a real problem. All of a sudden, the Players Union seems fractured. First, you get a story that comes out is now, while they had voted to approve a strike, now there could be some dissension in the ranks about whether or not they should call for a strike. There seems to be some dissension within the ranks about whether what the WNBA is offering at the table should be accepted in large part so that they can get their season going. There is absolute panic on behalf of the players.
According to David Sampson, someone who has spent years inside professional sports management and understands how high-stakes negotiations actually work, the situation is already decided. He didn't mince words. Sampson argued that the National Basketball Association has essentially already won this negotiation. Not because a deal has been signed yet, and not because the league offered something so generous that it couldn't be refused. His reasoning was much simpler. When the other side of a negotiation starts publicly fracturing this close to a deadline, the leverage disappears. At that point, the outcome is mostly determined. The only thing left to figure out is the final terms. Sampson also highlighted something important about the March 10th deadline that many people overlooked. That date wasn't driven by a strict contractual requirement or some unavoidable operational timeline. It was announced during All-Star Weekend by Adam Silver, and according to Sampson's interpretation, the specific timing was strategic. By setting a firm and highly visible deadline, Silver created a sense of urgency that would put pressure on the Women's National Basketball Players Association. And if there were already cracks forming behind the scenes, a ticking clock would only make those fractures spread faster. From that perspective, Sampson believes the league simply set the date, stepped back, and watched the internal tensions surface exactly the way they expected them to. This is not a critique of the league's offer. The gap between what players want, a gross revenue share, and the league's net revenue model is a legitimate, substantive dispute. But the way the union has conducted negotiations has weakened its own position. Every public claim of unity that turned out false handed leverage to the other side. Every time a vice president publicly claimed unity while privately writing letters about being left out, credibility eroded. In negotiations, credibility is currency, and the WNBPA spent months bankrupting it. The conflict of interest issue is just as serious. Breanna Stewart and Nneka Ogwumike are co-founders of Unrivaled, how the union treated Caitlin Clark over the past 2 years. Clark was the first major player to publicly push for a deal and a return to the court. The union and surrounding media painted her as anti-union or naive, while other players spent months saying, "We need compromise," and "a strike hurts everyone." The irony? Many of those players are now saying the exact same things they once criticized Clark for voicing. Clark changed the game for the WNBA, boosting attendance, TV ratings, and mainstream conversation. She even asked for spot bonuses for road team players, recognizing the revenue her presence was generating. And yet, union leadership spent the same period denying her impact, making alignment with her position socially costly, and simultaneously demanding more from the commercial growth she helped create. You can't erase the person who built the revenue and then cite that revenue as evidence for your case.